What's going on, guys? This week's review is on the Kel Tec Sub 2000. This particular one I have here is chambered in .40 caliber Smith & Wesson, but you can also get it in 9mm. For those of you who don't have any clue what the Sub 2000 is it is a pistol caliber carbine that's manufactured in sunny Florida. So, like all Kel Tecs, made in USA. Cool. It's a blowback operated semi-automatic that, like I mentioned, is available in 9mm or .40 Smith & Wesson. This weapon weighs 4 pounds unloaded, so it's pretty much nothing. It's just about all polymer plastics, very little metal in there. So 4 pounds unloaded. Open length, as you see here, is 29.5 inches. And also, for those who do not know, it collapses, which I'll show you in a minute. When it collapses, it is 16 inches. The barrel length, here to tip, 16.1 inches. The receiver is made of an impact modified glass reinforced Zytel. So that's what helps keep down on the weight. It's a polymer receiver all the way through, including the hand grip, everything. It's all polymer. The front, as far as the receiver, in the front right in here, there's a hinge block that holds the barrel on the rear sight, all in here. When you fold it, it locks into place. This trigger guard swings down. Like I said, I'm going to show you in a second. This trigger guard swings down. Locking mechanism is in here, and the whole thing folds up over top. The bottom of the receiver has a pistol grip where you feed magazines. Right here. I'll explain a little bit more about magazines because not all Sub 2000s are the same. There's 2 different versions you can get. This one is the Smith & Wesson version. You can also get a Glock version. That has to do simply with magazines. To fold the Sub 2000, you simply pull down on the trigger guard right here and swing the barrel up, and it locks into place by a latch in the buttstock that secures to the front sight housing assembly here. So basically, you're going to take it, you simply pull down on here, as you see, and the rifle folds down. Right here you can see there's a pin that secures into your front sight, and voila, your rifle is folded. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So that's how you fold the Sub 2000. When the Sub 2000 is folded, there's an additional safety feature where they provide a key and you can lock this pin, this securing pin in here, so that it cannot be unlocked. So you don't need a trigger guard or anything like that. If you can simply fold it up, lock it in place, and it's safe from maybe the little ones or whoever you're trying to keep this weapon safe from. Extra safety feature in there. And talking about safeties, there's also a conventional safety here. Thumb actuated safety, like a normal gun. Safe, push through, you're on fire. As you can see there, red, you can sort of see there. Red means dead, it's on fire. So that's the safeties on the Sub 2000. Now I'll go ahead and show you how to unlatch it or open it up fully. It's very simple. As you see right here, you've got this little pin. You simply push that pin in. It's on both sides, by the way. Push that pin in, it unlocks, and then you just swivel it down. And you're in. You're in business. So, the barrel is made of 4130 ordnance steel. You can't see it because it's got the polymer grip handguard almost all the way up. But from here to here is your barrel. 4130 ordnance steel. The stock, which I'll explain in a minute, but the stock's under here. I got this guard in here. Is also made of the steel. Houses a buffer and a buffer spring for the bolt. So when you fire the bolt, there's a whole buffer tube in here. So the stock is actually an entire buffer tube to help with recoil against your shoulder. Since this thing is almost completely polymer, the bolt is one of the most heavy parts on here, and it holds the firing pin, extractor, all the normal things that a bolt would have on there. So that's where most of your weight comes from. To pull the bolt back, you've got this lever down here where you simply pull it back and like that. Now, I've got an aftermarket part in here to assist in some problems that I have with this. Not only this rubber piece here, but there's a buffer, basically a buffer inside of the buffer. So I can't pull this all the way back, but you can pull this all the way back and put it in that notch and lock the bolt to the rear. But because of the aftermarket parts I have on this, I can't show you how to do that, but it's possible. And I'm sure somebody on here will see this folding pistol carbine and be like, that's scary. And it's true. I mean, the same reason why it's cool that it folds up for easy concealment is the same reason it's scary. You can, let me grab this. You can actually put it in a very, very small spaces. The bad guy can conceal this just as good as the good guy can. I actually put it in this really small camelback, folded up perfectly fine. I mean, there's plenty of room to spare in there. So this little camelback size bag can hold the Kel Tec. So that's cool factor. That's also scary factor. This thing can be, you know, I'll say it, you know, but Columbine style, this is a pretty dangerous feature on here, but that's why we teach responsible firearms use. Be safe with your weapons and stuff like that. Teach your kids how to use a weapon so that that kind of thing doesn't happen. The effective range on the sub 2000 is over 100 yards. At distances closer than 50 meters, the 9mm bullet approaches the muzzle velocity of a .357 Magnum. That's 9mm. So it's a really, really effective little gun. At 200 meters, the velocity is near a .380, which is still, again, impressive. So ballistically, it's a really sound weapon. Some people might be wondering why you would ever possibly need this weapon, other than the cool factor. It's neat, it's cool, it looks good in any collection, I think. But actually, a lot of law enforcement use this. The sub 2000, it's got a longer range than pistols do because of the length of the barrel and the design on it. So some areas do not allow even the law enforcement to have rifles or actual carbines in their patrol cars. So they'll have these in their patrol cars so they can take the regular magazines from their pistol, slide it into their sub 2000 and be able to reach out and touch somebody. They're also really popular with hikers and backpackers because, like I said, the weight is 4 pounds unloaded. It's not a whole lot of weight, but if you really need to reach out, you know, something for whatever happens, backpackers and hikers actually use the sub 2000 a lot. Now, what do I use the sub 2000 for? I'm actually a ninja. No, I'm kidding. I just use it for targets. I just target plank with it. It's a fun gun to shoot, so that's what I use it for. I think it's fun to shoot, and an interesting thing about it is because it shoots pistol ammo through pistol magazines, even if your local range does not allow rifles, almost all of them will allow you to use this there. So you can have the rifle feel, the rifle fun on a pistol range. The biggest complaint I have with the sub 2000 is that it can be really hard to get a good cheek weld and a good sight picture because the buttstock / buffer tube is really, really thin. So it's hard to get your cheek down low enough to get a good sight picture with these sights. The sights are pretty crappy in it, I think. That's my biggest complaint. Now, to fix that, I went to guys are called Tacticool. I'll send a link below so you guys can see where their stuff is. Real cheap. I got this stock cover. It's a soft rubber. It raises the cheek weld up a little bit, and it's softer. So as that bolt will slide to the rear when you fire, sometimes with the way I shoot, I haven't really heard many other complaints with this, but I would get a little pop in the cheek. And from a 40, I'm like, I don't want to be getting hit when I shoot this. So it helps with that. That's also why inside the buffer tube I have an additional buffer, which is basically just kind of a sponge cut to size. So when the buffer will hit that, Tacticool claims that lowers the impact on the shoulder by 30%. And I'll tell you, I don't think they're lying. It's an incredible lack of recoil or lessening of recoil with those two products on there. And total cost with shipping on the buttstock cover and the buffer was like 30 bucks. Really, really affordable. Like I mentioned before, one of the worst things about the buffer, the aftermarket buffer, is that you can no longer lock your bolt to the rear. So you can see here that notch. We can normally pull the bolt back and lock it over. You can't do that because the buffer's there, so it'll only go back to here, not all the way. But it doesn't affect your you're feeding any at all. You can still feed your rounds perfectly fine. Just note that. So if you have one and you're thinking, hey, I want a little less kick, you install it and you're like, I can't lock the bolt to the rear. Well, there's a disclaimer right there, and they tell you about that. It's not like they hide that. It's just a way that it's going to change your weapon. Just take note of that. Like I mentioned before, there's two versions. There's a Smith & Wesson version and there's a Glock version. This is the Smith & Wesson version, which is actually easier to find because there's a complaint across the board that the Smith & Wesson version, they don't release the magazines real smooth, and I'll prove that to you right here. Regular magazine works fine in a pistol. Inserts okay. It doesn't fall out. You really got to get your fingernail in there and pull it out. So that's the complaint on these, the Smith & Wesson. The Glock doesn't have that problem. Let's see if you can see in here. See, 40 Smith & Wesson. The Glock doesn't apparently have that problem. But if you're shooting these mags already, deal with it. You can actually go in there, file it out a little bit, do a little bit of work yourself, make it work. But if you shoot Glock, like I do, get the Glock version. This is my brother's rifle, so he got this without really knowing the two versions. Not a big deal, still really fun to shoot regardless. If you're wondering on price about the Sub 2000, if you're interested in looking at them, Kel Tec's MSRP, regardless of the model, and by model I mean Smith & Wesson, Glock, 9mm, 40 caliber, they say MSRP $409. Obviously street price or used less than that. You could get them for about $300 used. Pretty good bang for the buck. Again, this was a really quick review on an interesting gun. It's fun to shoot, very effective. Law enforcement, practicality on this. Home defense, backpacking. It's a versatile weapon. It's really fun. So I figured I'd throw it out there so you guys can see, maybe learn something about it. Hope you learned something about it.